Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to Marketing Matchmaker. I am super excited about today's podcast. I actually have on someone who talks about some of the things that I love most in my own world. While I definitely focus on marketing and all things marketing, mindset and emotional intelligence are also key in how you're going to grow your own business. And that is exactly where Rhonda Parker Taylor comes in. Rhonda, tell everybody who you are, what you do, and who you serve.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much for having me. I can't wait to dive into our stories. But I'm Rhonda Parker Taylor. I'm from Indianapolis. I grew up in a small town outside of Indianapolis, Noblesville, Indiana, and I come from entrepreneurs. So I've realized very early in age, before I even knew what entrepreneurship was, how important the storytelling is and the whole part process of marketing. I had a grandfather that could tell a story that could make a teenager want to try to find a job during the Depression by his
Nice.
story of how he was able to do it. And then I had a father that opened up his manufacturing company out of a barn. And then
Mhm.
now it's a mid to large size manufacturing steel manufacturing organization. So the models are there. It's whether we decide we want to follow those models and create our own story that engages others where they want to be a part. They want to be empowered and believe not only in the model that you're showing people, but also how to push through the hard times, how to be resilient, how to go through, and how to connect. And that's the hardest part of entrepreneurship. I thought, that I was going to not be in the entrepreneur space when I was younger. Oh, I wasn't intended to be that. And I went in and I decided, I'm going to be in academics and I wanted to be the most educated in my family. And I got my bachelor's, my master's, my doctorate. And then, boom, I was in the transition that I see so many people in. And when that life hit moments, it could be family members that get sick, it could be you get sick, it could be, an end of a relationship, or just wanting more than what you have in corporate America. You find out that you can create a legacy, and that legacy requires you to define yourself in a way that others really understand and trust you. So hopefully we'll get into a really engaging in conversation. I know we will. We started in the pre-show, and I know everybody out there is going to learn to push through and get the victory so that they can be resilient and strong in everything they do.
That's awesome. I love your story. And I love the fact that you have a history in your family of being an entrepreneur because um, I think a lot of entrepreneurs nowadays don't necessarily have that, right? Their parents were in corporate. They don't have that mindset behind being an entrepreneur. And that transition, like you were talking about. What is it that when someone is in that transition, what is it that they like, what's that key thing that they need to know or be able to feel in order to transition without the struggle?
Well, the first thing is, where do you add value? I start with every one of my clients, no matter whether it's an individual that's going through that transition that needs, a journey and a path to follow, or whether it's an organization. I use what they call in psychology the miracle question. Close your eyes. If you woke up tomorrow and everything was exactly the way you wanted it, what does that look like? And that changes, that's like a reset into the mindset. And when you do that, if you can, you can start going shopping on Amazon, and you can look for businesses that maybe you might want to open, or you can look for opportunities that are maybe for 2025 that are out there that people aren't exploiting and using their value for. So you start doing this self discovery and reflection that allows you to redefine and rise back stronger. It's a bounce back. It's a resilience process. Once you create that new world, you can create a mission, you can create a vision, you can create the marketing plan, you can even create the budget because you have an idea of where you want to go with your business or yourself. But the first thing is, how do you add value?
Love
Especially as
that.
an entrepreneur. If you aren't adding value, then guess what? You're in trouble because
Absolutely.
nobody, it's going to be very hard to engage people to want your product.
I love that. I love that because you're very, that's very true. I mean, one of the things that we look at in your whole marketing is going to be the value you provide, what makes you different than everybody else. And that generally is the value you provide and how you do that, that
Yeah.
makes you.
I can give you a perfect example. I think 2009 is when I opened up the consulting and moved from the academic space to entrepreneurship. And as I was working with clients, I started seeing different things and I started writing. And I started writing for my own development. But I was like, how can I add value? And at first, I'm doing all these self help books and all these stuff that I could do in the academic space, resilience, life balance. And so I have all these workbooks that I'd put together. And I'm like, but you know what? Not everybody's going to pick a self help or a workbook to work through their resilience, their life balance, the things that I deal with every day in consulting. So I wrote a fiction novel.
Nice.
So the novel Crossroads is like, even though it's a birth of learning who I am and learning how to promote myself and learning about life, I realized that in fiction, you can also bring with it self development. So
Yeah.
it's a crime novel
I love
based out of Indianapolis. But what I did is every one of the characters is out of balance. Their life balance is shot. They're dedicated to all the wrong things. And then they're in this room, and that is what can allow the clue based of who done it kind of scenario because okay, everybody's out of balance. But then guess what? People that have read that book can go to the self-help workbooks. They can come to me. So it's just adding a facet of allowing me to market what I believe is important in our messages, and that is being the best version of yourself.
I love that. I love the fact that you um created something that everyone can enjoy, right? That most people read fiction a whole lot easier than they're going to read a self-help novel, right? Like those
Right.
often there are those self-help, junkies like you and I who really do dive into all of that kind of stuff, but a lot of people don't. I love the fact that Crossroads kind of crosses that self-help with fiction that they can really get themselves involved in. So,
And the part of that for everybody is you're unlocking somebody's potential through them navigating characters, just like we do in a movie.
yeah.
We want to fall in love, go to a love movie. We want to relive our childhood of Wizard of Oz and going to our first stage performance. So we go to Wicked,
Yeah.
and Wicked. And so what we're doing is we want that value statement to be about what we really believe in so we
Yeah.
can we can get people to buy into why it's important for themselves.
Yeah. So Crossroads, obviously, as you said, all of the characters are out of balance, like in some area of their lives. And I know for a lot of entrepreneurs, I did this for a very long time in my when my business, where my work and life were completely out of balance and harmony. What are some tips to building a business without sacrificing that personal side of your life?
Well, first is walk with intention. And
Mhm.
then you can walk in the victory of being your own business owner. What I mean by that, So if you go through and do the miracle question and then you say, okay, what do I find enjoyment in? What is my life, my career path going to be? And you go through 13 dimensions of your life. You go through uh, your physical health, your mental health, your emotional health, your spiritual health, all the different things that are important. And you say, you know, where am I going to go with this? And you say, what do I enjoy that promotes these? And then you literally schedule it in like you do any other meeting. So, like for instance, I love the outdoors. Nature brings me not only joy, brings me perspective. So every morning I have a routine to make sure I have a few minutes that pulls that into my being and my soul so I can have peace. And it's as simple as opening up the blinds, peering out in your yard, looking at the, I call them critters, other people call them wildlife, you know, running through the yard. It could be a squirrel, a possum, you know, a cat, you know, a coyote, a fox, a deer, whatever it might be that's going through. It could be cars, looking at the different cars, and it doesn't matter what it is, but you create a synergy for yourself in everything you do that day. So then your coffee, your speaking, when are you going to sit down and talk to your family in the morning and make sure you're in line with them? Your great aunt that you haven't talked to in a year. So you just keep on pulling these intentional acts and into your life so that when you're that entrepreneur at your desk, an island by yourself, you feel like you don't feel so isolated. You're still connected to the world. Yes, you have to take breaks. But there are ways, you know, so many of us take our breaks and we sit down in front of the television. We say, this is our quiet time, our relaxed time. And that's it for the day. Instead, set your sights on making sure that you're reaching your summit in every area of your life, not just your entrepreneurial journey. And when you do that, you'll see that things start opening up for you. People start, you know, relating to you, and they help open doors for you at the same time.
Love that. I love that perspective of being intentional about your connections with your family and not I know as entrepreneurs oftentimes we spend so much of our time working because we've
Mm-hmm.
learned it's only us that we oftentimes neglect ourselves and our
Mm-hmm.
families. So being really intentional about that can definitely help you along that way. Um, so as we're wrapping up, I always like to bring this back to marketing. And I know you came up with a really innovative way with Crossroads to market yourself, just with your business itself. But do you have other, I know you've been in business for a little while, so do you have other suggestions around marketing your business, especially for that coach or consultant, that entrepreneur that is out there?
So first is when you find your value, you have to figure out how to distribute it. But you know, marketing can be very expensive. You know, so you have to really balance the two. How are you going to market that message, the value you offer people to other people? And I use an emotional intelligence model for this. First and foremost, I have to make sure my marketing efforts include, and I'm not using the inclusiveness of just often your ethnic background. I'm talking about your mindset, your generational mindset, your technical mindset. Go in and say, what are my biases?
I like
And what do I need to get rid of for me to be successful out there? And when I say biases, those are just preconceived ideas of the way things should be. And if I can shred that, that's part of your intrapersonal skills in emotional intelligence and be assertive enough. And assertive is not pushy. See, sometimes people think we have to be pushy to get our message. No, assertiveness is taking into fact that our value is important, but listening to others and making sure that message is circulated around what's important to others, not to us. See,
Yeah.
the bias is what's important to us. What's important to that client? What's important to that vendor? What's important to our team? And then go to your interpersonal space and say, okay, have I put myself in everybody's shoes on how that's going to relate? If I put a marketing plan out right now and I say, okay, this is what's going to do, what that does is that's transactional. Everyone in the room needs to give what the pros, the cons, what they see happening, how it affects their side of the business, how it affects the customer. And then you get in and you create this message and approach, whether it be social media, whether it be through any kind of media at all, because that's, is it going to be print? There is still print mail out there. What is that model going to look like, and how is it going to affect everybody? Then you turn into the stress management. What happens if there's no feedback? Because that happens.
It
You can do this
does
great
more
thing.
often than people
Guess what?
think.
And all of a sudden, boom, it produces one call, or one lead. So how are you going to handle the stress management from positive results and negative results, and then hold back on the impulse that we might have to, can this campaign or boost it, on Amazon 100 times fold
Mhm.
because we had a good. Watch your impulse control,
Yeah.
because it is so easy to knee jerk around, and that's not a solid model. And then lastly, your general mood is what engages not only your customer but your team. Your team cannot survive a negative mindset. My husband came up with a new one today, and that was negative norm, or norm. So instead of Debbie Downer, it's Norm. Norm is negative. So make sure that not only is your message one that people can relate to, but also that has that optimistic point of view with your team.
I loved all of those tips. I think they're so actionable for my audience. So, as we wrap up, Rhonda, for those people out there that are in transition, whether that's corporate to an entrepreneur, or whether there's some other transition going on in an entrepreneur's life, how do they get a hold of you? What's the best way for them to connect with you?
Well, my website's rhondaparkertaylor.com. My email's there. My social media handles are there. I'm on all the major platforms. Trying to expand those to other ones that are not as well known. And they can just reach out, and I will. I promise you, I will return your call.
Awesome. Awesome. And for those of you that are looking for a little self-help, but maybe not wanting to read a self-help book, get Rhonda's book, Crossroads, because it can definitely make changes in your life in a fun way, in a way that doesn't maybe feel so studious.
Yes, exactly. And it's kind of like this: when you're not paying attention to your own life, things can happen.
That is absolutely true. For those of you out there that are struggling with your marketing, whether it's you don't know what to do first or next, or whether you're looking to grow your business, head over to yourmarketingmatchmaker.com and sign up for a free strategy session where I promise you will get at least one actionable item that will help you grow your business, increase your revenue, and scale your impact. Until next time, focus on your mindset. Focus on balancing your work and life so that neither takes over and you're able to enjoy both. Till next time, I will see you then.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Marketing Matchmaker podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, I would love to hear your feedback. Please head over to Apple, iTunes, and leave a review so we can hear from you. And if you are a coach, consultant, or online course creator who are looking to grow your business, increase your income, and scale your impact, connect with me at yourmarketingmatchmaker.com. I look forward to hearing from you.